Hey guys, how are you? Okay, guess what? This video, we're taking out all of the paper that we put on in the last video. How fun is that? So the paper that we put on in the last video, that was literally just for the guide in order to create the blocks. And then once we've done that, we don't actually need the paper anymore. So we're going to start taking that off in preparation for preparing for our quilt blocks. So what's this week's question? It's going to be, what do you listen to while you're sewing? And your answer should be Sunday's podcast that me and my mum do. But hey ho, you may actually listen to some favourite music. So let me know what you actually listen to in that comment box down below. If you've been following my videos so far, you will know that I've been making a king size quilt out of these guys, this bed sheets, just that you buy from the store. So this is the flat sheet that you will see, and I can't really show you the fitted sheet because it's pretty much all cut up now. And this right here is all of my quilt block pieces. So there's been a little bit of a problem, and I'll explain that to you right now. Now, in order to make a true king size quilt out of a 10-inch block, it would require you to have 10 by 10 of these blocks. So that actually makes 100 blocks. Now, I was going to make it 9 by 9, but the only problem is that I don't have enough of the bed sheet left over, and I'll just show you how much I have left. So I would have needed like 81 blocks to make it 9 by 9, and I only have like a little bit left of this king size fitted sheet. Now, I don't understand where I went wrong, because I should have had enough to have made like 81 blocks, because I wasn't even making it like 10 by 10. I was now making it 9 by 9, which I should have had like a lot more of this. But I think the problem is when you do paper piecing and you are stitching them lines over and you're flipping it over, and like my blocks here that I actually designed and made myself, they're all on a diagonal. So I overestimate and overguess the amount that I'm going to need in order to cover this particular section, because I had the teal on this corner, if you remember, and I have the teal on this corner. So when I flip it over, I was kind of overcompensating, and I was probably wasting quite a lot of the fabric, and that's probably why I'm running short on this bed sheet. And some of the two pillows that came with the bed sheet set are actually like bedding like pillow shams and not true like pillow foams. So I could have stolen some of the material there, but I actually need 18 more blocks in order to make up like the 9 by 9. So what I'm going to have to do instead is make 8 by 8. So now I have all of my blocks, and I'm going to get started on piecing these together and showing you how to piece your blocks together. So I've now gone down to 8 by 8. So I have 64 of these blocks all complete. And let's say if I do want to build it back up to a king size quilt, I will be able to do that, because I can just put a border all around the edge of my king size quilt. So I'm going to see how big I end up with this quilt top with the 8 by 8 and see if I actually want to build it back up again to a king size quilt. So there's no harm taken, it's going to still look fantastic. So let's get started on the preparation of getting these pieced together. If you remember my previous video, you would remember that I am not going to use this seam allowance. I was originally going to use it, and I've decided not to do it. I am going to literally cut all the way around straight onto this line here. So any of my seam allowances are going to be taken up inside of this seam. So I'm going to lose a little bit of this 10-inch block, which I'm not really bothered about. I just wanted to make sure that every single block was going to be totally consistent, and there wasn't going to be any room for error. So this is why I did this, because I didn't want to be just slightly out on this seam allowance. So I'm just going to start cutting around all of these blocks. And whenever you're doing paper piecing, just make sure that you're following each designer's instructions. Some may want you to take this seam allowance, some may not. So just look at the pattern and follow the directions. This is my own pattern, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut around here. So here we go, I've got my cutting mat and I've got my rotary cutter that I use for paper, because it's obviously paper here on fabric and I don't want to use my regular fabric rotary cutter. So I always have two different sorts, one for paper crafting and another one for fabric. I really do like using this cutting mat because it's really helping me to get this job done really fast. All I'm doing is spinning this mat around like so, taking my next cut. You kind of get in a rhythm after a bit. I mean, I've done many of these blocks already and it's so much easier than having to flip the paper around all the time. You just keep turning this mat around and then cutting again. And all done. You can see how fast that has actually been able to do that. Okay, so now I have all of my pieces done. All the paper has been taken out and now I can start doing my blocks together. Okay, so 4 of my blocks make up one of my designs. So I'm going to do this in 4s. So it's going to be something like this. Now all I have to remember is that all these blue lines here are on the inside, because if I have a grey one on the inside like this, I know I've done something wrong. So it's definitely like this. So now I am going to start sewing these 4 together. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take these 2 and sew it straight down the middle here, and then I'm going to get the next 2 and sew them down the middle. And then when we have these 2 attached, these 2 and these 2, we're then going to attach it by sewing right along this centre bit here. Here's my baby girl back with the baby lock soprano. So I am going to switch out my foot and I'm going to put that 1/4 inch foot with guide, the one that I always love to use when I'm quilting. And also I am going to have a 9014 Microtex needle in the machine, and I'm just going to use the regular polyester thread in both the top of my thread and the needle, as well as the thread in my bobbin. And also, as you can see, like I always say, manufacturer settings right here, so they all stay exactly the same on the machine. So let's get some sewing done. So this is that foot that I like to use, the 1/4 inch foot with guide. Just gets that perfect 1/4 inch. I always use it. I use it more than I use my regular J foot, which is the guy with the black thing, your regular just sewing foot. So I'm just going to change out this foot real quick, like so. Super easy to use. I want to be careful with my piecing and make sure that I'm being like really precise, which I'm not normally so precise, if I'm honest, but I just don't want this to look bad. And I know that I've got a certain intersecting thing, so I just want it to look as good as it can be. So let's get going. And just make sure you've got everything lined up. There we go. This is my next 2 pieces all ready to line up. Now before you join these 2 sections together, I would highly recommend that you just press these down with your iron so you make sure that everybody is all flat and ready to go for the next piece in. So I'm just going to go off camera and just press this and this down, and then we'll be ready to join this section up here. Now, can you see how much better this looks? Now, I want to get this crease in the middle in line with this crease in the middle. This is exactly where I want it to meet. So I am going to line these two pieces up, and I'm going to get a pin. I know, shock horror. I don't normally get a pins. I normally just like wing it, but I want to make sure that these are dead in the center. So I'm either going to get a wonder clip or I'm going to get some pins. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't move on me. And yeah, I'm going to use my wonder clips. So I'm just going to use these clips just to keep this in place right here. And then I'm going to take it back over to my sewing machine and sew everybody into place. Here we go, back at the sewing machine. Let's get everybody sewed down. I don't think I've ever been this precise on a sewing project before, but I want it to look absolutely spot on. Let's make sure nobody moves on me. Stop moving. And this is exactly what one block looks like, and I am really impressed with it. I love it so much. I really hope that you've enjoyed watching along with me, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because next week I'm going to have all these pieces all pieced up together and I'm going to start doing the quilt sandwich, and I'm going to give you some tips along the way of things that I love to do every time I do a quilt sandwich. So join me right back here next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys. And here's this week's blooper reels. So the foundation paper piecing, you were just using the paper in order to follow the lines, and then once we have put all and that's one for the blooper reel. Every time I press record, it decides that it's going to do that. Thank you, Iron. So no video is good enough without a cat in it, is it? Look, that's his favourite toy. Let's see if we can see. Hey, Gatsby. He just ignores me. Nope, no movement.